Hello, and welcome to Calming the Chaos, where we present tips, tools, and techniques to help you find peace in a chaotic world. I'm your host, Tracy Canella, licensed mental health counselor at Lokahi Counseling. This channel and the Calming the Chaos podcast is for those who want self-help and education. It's not a substitute for counseling or psychotherapy. So if you like the information, please subscribe to my channel and share it with your friends. Thanks so much for listening. And now, let the chaos begin. In this episode of Calming the Chaos, I'm here with Debi Wallbank and Georgia Manning of the Heartcore Warriors. And they are both in Great Britain, which I dearly love because sometimes I do an accent that maybe sounds a little bit cheesy, but I've heard it's quite good, actually. Anyway, I'm very excited to have them here because they're talking about one of my favorite subjects, and that is menopause. Debi and Georgia are on a mission to eliminate the stigma of menopause and also to identify and help people recognize and help themselves out from any trauma that can result from menopause. And I just love this subject, and these two girls are just fantastic. I can't wait to hear more of their story and how they got to meet each other and how they have gotten on this mission together. So I'm going to bring them up one by one. Here is Debi. And hello. And here's Georgia.
Hi, Tracy. Jolly good accent.
It doesn't sound effort. Yeah, I've heard it sounds Australian, but I don't know because I don't know either one. I just kind of do what I do, whatever that is. So good to have you both here today. I'm so excited to talk with you about menopause. And well, first off, I want to hear about you two, and maybe one of you can start us off by telling us the story of how, a little bit about you and how you met.
Georgia, do you want to go first or shall I go first?
I feel like you tell the story really well, so.
Okay, I shall go first.
No pressure or anything like that.
Not at all, eh? So, gosh, well, I come from a corporate background. 30-ish years working in oil and gas in Aberdeen, Scotland. That's where I'm from. Lived probably 2/3 of my life in Aberdeen. But I have moved around the UK quite a lot in search of better jobs, in search of being closer to friends and family. Met my now ex-husband who shipped me up to Orkney, which is a very remote island off the north coast of Scotland. Lived there for a few years, but we had to move back to Aberdeen again, and I went back into oil and gas. Unfortunately, at that time, I was starting with perimenopause. Didn't know it at the time, but the symptoms caused me to be quite ill and subsequently lose 3 jobs back to back. And I then ventured into network marketing, which I did on and off for around about 8 years. In the process of that, learned a ton of stuff about social media, how to network correctly, how not to be the spammy person, how not to be the overly salesy person, and just how to tell your own story in an effective way on social. And I wanted to put a course out about that subject. So an opportunity was given to me for some free training on how to do just that, how to create an online course and put it out there. So I did the free training, then signed up for further training. And it was in that situation that I bumped into, well, I didn't bump into Georgia. I virtually bumped into Georgia on the same course.
Yeah, we don't bump into each other anymore, literally, right?
We fist bump. That's it. So we met through the process of doing this course. We instantly hit it off. We've sort of discovered that we're pretty much the same person, aside from visually looking very different. Inside, we're the same. So we are each other's twin in an alternate universe, perhaps. We loved getting to know each other and decided that it would be really a great idea to join forces and put out a course that was for both of us, that we could both have input to. So we tailored that course several times in the process, trying to find something that utilized both our skills, that meant something to both of us. And at some point in time, because I have been through menopause, I mentioned about me potentially approaching other menopausal women to come and do our course. From that point, it became, we're going to do a course about helping people with menopause. And it's been quite a roller coaster journey, I guess, but in a good way. You know, there's been lots of ups, some downs also, lots of twists and turns, lots of high speed progress, lots of slow climbs, and oh, it's just been incredible. And I have found, you know, a best friend for life, a business partner for life, and someone that just knows me inside and out. And we've only met physically once, you know, so it's been a fantastic journey so far, and I can't wait for the rest of the adventure.
Yeah, and you two have only really known each other for not even a year, right?
Yeah,
That's incredible.
We bumped paths in February this year.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I think that kind of paves the way for Georgia to give an introduction about her and how she is your twin flame, apparently, right? And what she contributes to this dynamic duo, if you will.
Dynamic duo, I love that. So what a beautiful intro, Deb. Yes, our worlds collided, and I have not been the same since. I've been really impacted on a cellular level by this fusion of our offerings and this collaboration, but it's a soul collaboration. And it really helps that Deb is the techie graphic designer, you know, extraordinaire, because that's not my thing. So I am a somatic coach, I'm a holistic coach, and I really work with bringing people back into the body so they can experience the richness of the present moment without being in their head. Because that's where we spend quite a lot of time, and the cognition is, you know, it's wonderful, but it doesn't, in my opinion or in my experience, alter your state. So I spend a lot of time below the line, beneath, below, and before words. And I've learned this from my experience as a dementia carer, because before language, there are no words sometimes with somebody who's experiencing that, and helping them to navigate with them through that fog. You have to show and not tell them that they are safe, and it's all about safety. That's my work, is about making people feel safe so they can connect more deeply to themselves.
Well, so your work combines both of your talents, strengths, and gifts. So then we've got the techie, and by the way, wonderful graphic designer, and also knows how to do social media. And then the somatic healing part of it, the body, bringing the body and the mind together. And I love what you said, Georgia, about creating safety with things that aren't verbal necessarily or cognitive, but being able to help a person to feel safe. Yeah.
And it's not to say that that part isn't important, but it goes offline sometimes.
Yeah, and we'll talk about how that happens during menopause, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, let's start out with, and either one of you can chime in on the definition of menopause. Just, I think everybody knows, but I always like to give a definition of what we're looking at. And I promise to give a definition of chaos too. And we'll put the two together and talk about some strategies that you two teach in your classes and in your work with people. So who wants to go with the definition of menopause? What is that anyway?
I'll let you take that one, Deb.
Well, yeah, I'm the one with sort of the experience of it, I guess. Georgia is probably just starting her journey and, you know, experiencing some symptoms, but I have had the whole whack and I have been through it. So I'm probably best placed at this point to try and explain it to you. The technical side of it, the science bit, menopause is really, it's broken into 3 phases. You have perimenopause, which is when your estrogen levels are starting to drop and you'll start to notice some symptoms, it's often where the symptoms are at their worst. But because it can often happen at quite a young age, it isn't necessarily recognized straight away as being menopause. So you have this perimenopausal state, which can begin in your, well, I was 40. It can begin in your 30s. And actually, some people are extremely unlucky and experience it in their 20s, which is extremely rare, but it's not impossible. And, you know, to digress slightly, this is why we're doing what we're doing, because we really want people to be aware of it at a much younger age so that they're equipped for it better when it happens, so they can understand what's going on and not be scared, not be stressed, not panic thinking it's something else, and give them the tools to help them through it much more easily. So your estrogen levels are dropping. Now, estrogen controls many things in your body. Too many to list, to be honest. And there are actually 34 recognized symptoms of menopause, but there are more than 34 because I have had some that aren't even on the list. And some people will sail through the process with minimal symptoms. Some people get them all and it's like a ton of bricks hitting you, you know. So there's no one size fits all. But your estrogen levels are dropping, so you can start to experience fatigue, brain fog, hot flushes, flashes, some people call them, night sweats, irritability, sleepless nights, weight gain, you know, just to name a few. But from those symptoms, you'll see that they can apply to so many things, right? And this is unfortunately why people aren't diagnosed early enough as being in menopause, because all those symptoms, for me personally, could have related to two other conditions that I have, which is an underactive thyroid, and I'm vitamin B12 deficient. They have the same symptoms. So it's extremely hard to know if it's menopause or not. And really the only way to tell is with a blood test, which in this country, GPs are very loath to provide when people are so young, because you can't be having menopause because you're too young, you know, so they don't necessarily look into it on that level. So perimenopause itself, with all these wonderful symptoms, can last on average 4 years, but it can last up to 10 years, and in some cases, possibly more, you know. So that's a really long time to be going through this transitional phase. And if you're experiencing these symptoms all at once, it's not going to be much fun, as I'm sure you can imagine. So perimenopause is ongoing. You have your symptoms. Your monthly bleeds will probably become less frequent. They may become every second month, and they may be even less frequent than that. And that is when you really start to know that it's the menopause that's causing these symptoms. And ultimately, you have to be technically bleed free for 12 months before you can be classed as menopausal. So up until then, if you are still bleeding, you're still perimenopausal.
And that's just the first phase, perimenopause?
Perimenopause is just the first phase.
Oh, boy, that sounds like so much. In a way, I haven't heard the other two phases yet. And to be honest, didn't know that menopause had 3 phases, even though I've been through it myself.
Yeah.
It was a fog. And I wonder if perimenopause is the worst phase. It sounds really awful.
Yeah, it has been documented that the symptoms are usually at their worst in this phase, and they will gradually decrease over time. Not in everyone's case. Some people are symptomatic right to the very end, and then it can just stop. But typically, the symptoms will reduce over time.
Wow.
And then when you're in the menopause phase, as I say, you have to have had no menstruation for a period of 12 months minimum. And you will still potentially have symptoms at this point, but they should now, because you're not menstruating, a lot of the symptoms kind of disappear along with that. So they really should start to decrease by this time. And the menopause phase itself can last about 4 years. Now, I was perimenopausal at 40, although it took 2 years to be confirmed. And I was in that until about 18 months ago. So I'm technically in menopause at the moment, but because my symptoms are really dramatically falling away now, that's kind of when menopause stops, is when your symptoms have gone. That is another average of 4 years, but again, it's not a given. And after that, you are then in post-menopause. So you never actually leave menopause. Once you have started perimenopause, you will be menopausal for the rest of your life. You just might not have symptoms. And that's where the confusion is. But you never actually exit menopause or get through menopause. You're always in it. You're just in a different stage of it.
Yeah. Wow. And I can really see where the connection can come in with the body work that Georgia does, and all of the chaos that could be happening when there's so much change, so a state of disorganization, we're talking just confusion and all the stuff that's new, transition, throwing us off balance, is a state of chaos happening in the body. And so anything you want to add to that, Georgia? And by the way, wonderful definition, and just the way that you laid it out in three phases, Debbie.
Thank you.
Yeah, beautiful, Deb. Really beautiful. No, that's absolutely it. It's that disorganized sort of there's sort of an underlying thing within chaos. And I don't know if you know about the butterfly effect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So a butterfly can flap its wings in Brazil and it'll be felt in China. A tornado will happen in China, or an earthquake will happen in China. And when you have these systems, these ecosystems that are being compromised, it's like everything becomes sort of disenfranchised and goes, into disarray. So it can have a knock-on effect on everything. And also some of these symptoms, like the hot flashes or flushes, can feel like high anxiety. They can feel like something else. And then you can start to bring those things on because you are thinking it's connected to something else, like anxiety or fear. So they have similar kind of chemical reactions going on in the body. And that is kind of the definition of trauma, according to HeartMath, Daniel Siegel, is, organisms have a tendency towards self-organization. And when there is trauma and disruption and dysregulation, they go towards either chaos or rigidity.
And that's what's happening in the body at menopause. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think the trauma of it and the chaos of it is when we disconnect from it because it's too much. There's either too much intensity or there's a lack of something. And that's where the chaos and the anxiety and the pain comes in, is that disconnection from self, from the experience, because it's maybe too overwhelming for people and they don't understand and they're not meeting their biology where it is. And they're thinking something's wrong with them. What's wrong with me? What's going on? Especially with this perimenopause that you were talking about, Deb, that transitionary phase. It makes so much sense to me that it's, the worst part, because you keep getting invalidated. You've experienced that. Doctors telling you, oh, but, you're too young or whatever. And I think that causes the trauma and the chaos to further just intensify and be really inflammatory, because no one is seeing your experience and they're just diminishing you.
And to add to that as well, the chaos is actually happening in your body as a physical thing as well. Your hormones are all over the place because the lack of one hormone can result in the overproduction of another hormone to kind of counteract it. And it's not a normal state for your body to be in that transition period. It becomes normal, but in that moment when it's all starting to happen, your body inside you is going, what is going on? It doesn't know what's going on. So not only is there a mind chaos going on, there's a physical chaos as well.
Right. Yeah, yeah, which makes Georgie's work so important when you think about you're a somatic healer, isn't that right?
Yes.
Yeah. How did you get to be a somatic healer? If we could just hear a little bit about what that is and how you were able to get into that sort of line of healing.
Yeah, sure. So, as Deb said, we met on another course, which was nothing to do with somatics. And I was exploring on my own because I felt like it was, while it was great for me, it wasn't going deep enough. And I wanted to go sort of below the line, below the neck, because that was what I practiced in my own life and found to be effective in regulating myself. I wasn't able to regulate my state by trying to manipulate my thoughts. And I would try it and I would be not very successful. And then I would think, what? I'm doing something wrong. What's wrong with me? And then I started to explore somatics, and soma is the body, and just getting back into the body. And so many of us are disconnected from our bodies. And it was a very bizarre experience for me when I first did one of these sessions where I was sort of reclaiming my territory and looking at my hands and, just acknowledging them. And through every body part, I felt this sort of aliveness and this connection, and it was tingling. And then I did tapping, and that was really, there was so much resonance frequency in that. And I just started to go further and further down the portal, the rabbit hole, or whatever you call it. So yeah, I just find it really, really effective. It's not for everybody. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I was thinking as you were talking about then during menopause, wouldn't it be natural to want to disconnect from the body when it's going through so much chaos, when it's going through so much, all of those symptoms that Debbie mentioned?
Yeah.
I, I really think it would be sort of natural to do
Mhm.
that. Georgia, do you help people feel safer, like you said earlier, feel safer getting back into the body?
Yes, absolutely. That is exactly it. People, there's a dissonance and they disconnect. They dissociate because it's too much. It's too much. So I do, and it's very gently stepping towards the self, coming back home. And it's about the feedback, because all of this stuff is feedback. It's signals from home. It's signals from your body. And if you attune to it, you can start to understand what your body is telling you, body talk. You can start to really honor that and be with it without create the need to create a story around it, because it's biology.
Yeah, and so how does one get attuned with the body? Either one of you can answer that if you want to speak to it, because when you said that, I thought, yeah, that must be the key, right? Is to
Yeah.
be able to get attuned to it. So first off, what is attuned and how do we get there?
So attunement happens. We're attuning to one another right now.
Mm.
And co-regulation, where you're co-regulating with another person's nervous system, which Deb and I do all the time, just by talking, allows you to feel safe. A lot of the culture now says that people that try to co-regulate are needy, or it's toxic, but we are primed for that as human beings. So that is one way to attune, is to attune with another. Makes you feel safer to be yourself. So you can do it with another person, you can do it with a partner, you can do it with a pet, or you can simply sit with yourself. And it is hard for some people to come back into the body. It's a practice, it's a process, but it's kind of like the art of becoming, self-actualization. Carl Rogers calls it.
Yeah.
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 So it's just, I already have all of the resources within. I just have to connect back into that inner innate wisdom, because it's all there. And it's that organic intelligence. But we need to, well, in my opinion, take the mind out of that, the thinking mind, because that's when you start to create these stories and these narratives, and just be with what is. The I attending to the it, the felt sense, Focusing is very good. I do focusing with my clients, and that's a very good practice that allows you to just a gentle noticing, and just in that awareness, you can start to connect to your body.
Yeah, so attunement meaning kind of a fancy word with connecting, but it's more than connecting. It's actually connecting and noticing and almost like leaning into what is happening in the body, right? That's the attunement, and maybe getting the mind and the body attuned together. I love the way
the
that
ultimate
sounds.
goal.
Yeah, I've never really used that word attunement before, but I really like that in how to describe how the mind and the body work together, and of course how we connect with each other too, right?
Yes.
Well, is that what you two teach? And now I know you do some workshops and retreats, and we can talk about that. Is this attunement and how to be back into your body, especially during this time of menopause? Is that what the two of you are teaching in your courses?
Yes. And we're basically providing co-regulation in a space for people, a sisterhood that is so, important.
A sisterhood. Yeah. Can you say more about that?
Well, so if you look at tribes and different cultures, there's that sense of community. So when a woman goes through pregnancy, she has a child, all of the elders attend to the child and the mother, and, take some of that pressure off. And we've kind of lost that. And the same with going through menopause. We do it on our own. We suffer in silence. And I think that's what we're doing, is creating a heart space where we can unburden ourselves of these things that are very normal, and that in other cultures and in days gone by, we would have had comfort and solidarity around, and a holy communion of sharing it. But now we're not like that anymore. So
Yeah, we just want to create a really safe space
yes.
for, at this point in time, for menopausal women. We are not excluding anyone at all. Anyone is welcome to join if they can relate to the symptoms, if they can relate to the stresses. But our aim and our focus is to help with menopause, because we align with it ourselves so much, and sorry, excuse me. It will be a completely safe space that we have, and it's built on openness, honesty, authenticity, and warmth and genuine care for people.
Let me see if I can pull this graphic up here. This is the 5-day workshop, and I don't know, it looks like it's going to be happening on Monday. Is that right?
It is indeed. We have a free 5-day event running next week. Now, I say 5-day. It's not like 24 hours for 5 days, but we will be sharing content. We'll be sharing videos. We have some guest gurus that are joining us to share their top tips on other things that we can do to help. So, nutrition, fitness, sleep, gut health, all of these wonderful things can all come together to make your transition period and the entire menopausal period much more comfortable, way less stressful, and ultimately will make you a better human being, because you're connecting to all these different areas of your body and yourself that you sort of take for granted. So the workshop itself is, we're going to have a live session every day. It's only half an hour, but we will be teaching some of the techniques that we'll be using in the retreat. We will be, as I say, sharing other top tips, giving advice. We'll be open to questions if people want to ask us things. It is entirely free for the whole time. And, we just can't wait to get started and share all these things that we've experienced, that we've learned, that can help so many people.
And I have to call attention to the graphics on this. So that's Debbie's work, and she just does a fantastic job making it look all mysterious and gothic and kind of sexy there. I love it. So great work. And so it's absolutely free. Where can we go to be able to, if somebody is interested in that, where can they go to be able to access it?
Okay, so we are building our own private space away from social media. It will be via our own website, and we have an app as well. So it will be website for, you know, laptops, computers. It's also mobile friendly, and we have the associated app. So we have a private group within that space, and in that group is where we'll be sharing all the content, and all the live sessions will be there. They will be recorded, so even if people can't join live, they can just catch up whenever they want to, and it will remain there for them as a resource forever. You know, we're not just going to close the doors after 5 days. They can stay in there and keep coming back, especially for the techniques, because you're not necessarily going to get it right the first time. You're going to want to go back and look at how it was done and improve your own technique. And you know, it's a chance to speak to other people that are going through the same thing as well, and all entirely controlled by us. It's by invitation only. We have a link where you can register. You can sign up for your free tickets, and then we will let you into the group. But we will only let you into the group if we know you have your ticket.
Awesome. I hope this is the right website here. That's the Wix website, and they have all kinds of different links that I will put in the description for this video. We do also have some information that it's a link I'll put up here, but this is the all link. So this has all of their social media links in it. And again, if you click on the description of the show, you will find that too. So you'll know where to. They've got a YouTube channel, they're on Pinterest, and they've got a podcast. I guess you have a podcast as well. And we haven't really talked about the podcast a whole lot, but if you want to speak to that, that would be, this is what the podcast looks like when you pull it up. And yeah, what do you talk about on Warriors Wisdom podcast?
We have a lot of fun on the podcast. It's tied in heavily to what we're doing with regards to the retreat, but it's also about other things. You know, it's literally just our musings. There are updates on what we've been up to in the previous week. We do like to have a laugh. We do like to be brutally honest. We'll talk about all sorts of topics. So far it's brand new, but so far we've spoken about sleep a little bit. We've spoken about gut health a little bit. I actually have a couple to update onto there. And, you know, we're talking about things from our perspective, and from what we've learned through personal experience, and from what we've learned from our guru partners. And, you know, we're partnering with some amazing people now. We're also in talks with various brands to have some products for our retreat, you know, we can put into a lovely welcome box. So all of these people are helping us grow our own knowledge of health in general, really. So I guess primarily it's health related, but at some point in time, there will be social media stuff in there. There will be personal branding stuff in there. You know, the Warriors as a brand itself covers a lot of different areas, and we want to share bits of that through our wisdom.
Yeah, and wisdom it is too. I really can see that with the two of you working together. And if you were to give either one of you just a tip or a tool that a person who may think that they're struggling with menopause but not sure, like what you were mentioning earlier, Debbie, about I have a vitamin B12 deficiency and hypothyroid. Is this a health condition? Is this menopause? Of course, we know menopause happens in the body, so it is a health condition. How are people supposed to know, and what could they do to find out?
Shall I take that, George?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, you know, as I said before, it can be extremely difficult to know, and even to have that into your head that it could be menopause. You know, I've had similar symptoms to these prior to me being perimenopausal. So when they started to get worse, and I would kind of joke, like, oh yeah, it must be menopause, you know, ha ha ha, it's menopause. And everybody would say, don't be stupid, you're only 40, can't possibly be menopause. And it was. So it is extremely difficult to know if it's menopause or not. First, I would suggest to anyone who has any concerns, obviously consult your GP in the first instance. If you find they're maybe not as helpful as you would want them to be, or they kind of poo-poo the idea that it's menopause, do your research. Really look online and assess the symptoms. And if you can find this list, we'll share the list of 34 symptoms. That's, we can share that with you.
Oh, great.
If you find you're ticking off half or more of this list, I would say there's a high chance it's perimenopause. But even a GP, if you tick off all the boxes, some of them will still not necessarily class you as being in perimenopause because of your age. All GPs are different, right? We all know that. They all operate differently. They have a different train of thought. So if you are really concerned, start looking at herbal remedies in the first instance, if you wish. If you want to take something for it, they can be extremely beneficial. For me personally, they didn't work. So I'm actually on HRT, which again, some people are for and against, and that's personal choice. That's absolutely fine. I'm not pro or against anything. If something works for me, I'm happy. And, if people are open to HRT, certainly investigate that option as well. Assess your risks, because there are some known risks with it. But if your GP recommends that it's okay for you and you're open to that, I would certainly encourage people to give it a try. A friend of mine actually she's in menopause because of surgery, and she actually is on 3 HRT patches at a time, and she changes them every second day. Whereas the normal prescription for them, well, certainly here, is 1 patch twice a week. So she's on about 3 or 4 times as much because of the surgical procedure. So again, even with the treatment, there's no fixed cure, if you like. Well, there's no cure, but there's no fixed remedy or solution. But definitely investigate herbal options. Look into somatic work. Look into holistic work if you don't want to take anything prescribed or medicinal. Anything really that can just help you calm, help you focus, and just take away that panic, because there's no need to panic. The symptoms are not great. If you're going to get them quite badly, it's not much fun, but it isn't the end of the world. It really isn't. There are so many things that can help and certainly alleviate the symptoms. And of course, we're here if anybody wants to chat to us as well. We'd love anyone just to send us a message, come say hi if they're really struggling. We'd be very open to that. And I'm just looking at your link. I think that may be the wrong one, so I will send you the correct link and we can have that updated.
Great. I appreciate that. And, so whether it's menopause or whether it's another health condition, there is chaos going on in a body. And so, Georgia, if you were to give a tip about if you are struggling with something that is disruptive, chaotic in your body, just like a hot flash, for example, is there a technique where you can obviously the hot flash is there, and it's not going anywhere because it's here. How can we exist with it more comfortably in our physical bodies?
Well, my first tip would be to allow it.
Don't resist it. Yeah.
There's a 90-second rule. So you allow a process to complete, that cascade that comes down in the body. Just let it be. And it will complete, because when there are unfulfilled cycles and processes that are incomplete, that energy is within the emotional body, and it's just not a good thing. You need to discharge it. But by allowing and just being with it and witnessing it, and maybe even noticing, and you can maybe even ask yourself, how can I do less in this moment? How can I do less?
I love that. I've been in meetings with people who are going through menopause, and they're very open about it. And you can tell, because they would get a hot flash, but then they're like, oh no, it's a hot flash. And then they grab a piece of paper and they start, fanning themselves. And you can tell they're really getting worked up, and it's not going away. And so I think what you just said is really wise counsel, and you said 90 seconds?
Yeah, the 90-second rule. And it's hard because our nature is to start to, again, create a story around this. Why is this happening? What's going on? There's something wrong. But if you just allow it to complete, it will pass.
Allow it to come. Yes, what we resist persists is what I've been told, right? So if we resist it, it's going to, just like the person who's frantically fanning themselves, it's going to be more likely
Exactly.
that it will get worse, and because we add anxiety onto everything else, which is not extra helpful. So
exactly that. And if they're fanning themselves, what are they doing? They're moving and causing themselves to get even more heat in their bodies, because they're making this motion. And yes, their face might be getting cool, but the rest of their body is going to be on fire. So calm and breathe, I think, are
is very good. And even asking, maybe sort of sitting with yourself and asking the hot flash, this sounds weird, what do you need right now? What can I give you that's supportive in this moment? And maybe it's to just lie down, whatever it is, it's letting the body lead, really.
Yeah, I remember when I was going through probably perimenopause, now that I have learned more about it today, and sitting in a session with a client, and a hot flash would come on, and I would start to feel that kind of wave of heat going up and around, and just trying to breathe into it while also listening to the client and understanding that it's sort of like emotions. They're like waves. It does sort of have this sort of apex, and it goes back down if you will allow it and not resist it. It is super challenging, though, when you're having a conversation. It's supposed to be a professional, and you're getting this hot flash, and you're sweating in your cleavage and all this other stuff that happens that's so joyous. And I think from a mental health standpoint, one of the things, as a person who has gone through menopause myself, is I would offer that we plant positive suggestions to those who are not going through it yet. Like, I caught myself telling a younger colleague, oh, wait till you go through menopause. It's really bad. And then I thought, wow, Tracy, you're a hypnotherapist. You're not supposed to be giving those sorts of suggestions to people. So I had to call her up and say, I refuse that suggestion on your behalf. And I'm going to give you other suggestions, such as it's going to be fine. You can make it through. Others have made it through, and we can support each other through it.
Awesome. And that is our exact aim. We would love much more education to be on this in schools.
Yes.
Way before, we're taught about so much about our reproductive system, about relationships, about life in general, but nobody tells you about the stuff when you're getting older, because they think it's not important then because you're not older. But by the time you get to be older, and it just all of a sudden hits you and nobody's told you about it, that's when the chaos kicks in.
Would you suggest that mothers start to talk to their daughters about this? Because I think it's really super important to do.
Yeah, I mean, neither of us have children, so we can't, say this from a maternal point of view, but from a common sense point of view, absolutely. I don't think anybody could be too young to start to be told about these things.
Yeah, when I first talked to my mother about it, I had already been through it. And then I asked her just kind of casually, like, okay, what age were you when you went through it? And we were the same age. And I could have just asked her when I was going through it. But of course, there's that sort of, there wasn't that sisterhood sort of idea behind it for me. So I love the work that you two are doing. Is there anything in parting that you guys would like to say about the work that you do, or about another tip or tool, or just something else that you'd like to add about menopause in general?
Gosh, I guess for me, in relation, similar to yourself, Tracy, my mom was the same age as me when she had her perimenopause as well. And I didn't even know that she was going through it. I wasn't aware. I didn't even acknowledge that. And even now, I think it was only yesterday. I mean, I knew she was 41 when I asked her when I was kind of maybe 45 or something. But it was only this week, and I just asked her, I said, what symptoms did you have? I had no idea. I literally have no idea what mum went through in that period, because she didn't talk to me about it. We weren't living together at that point. We were, we're opposite ends of the country, but maybe she was struggling and had no one to talk to.
Yeah.
And I would have been more than happy to listen and support, So my biggest tip, I guess, is find one person that you can talk to in utter confidence and with the ease to say whatever you want, and it won't be judged. And you won't be condemned for it. You won't be ridiculed, and you won't be told you're being stupid. Just find that one person, because that one person could actually change your life and your whole experience of this process.
Yeah, such good counsel there. I really appreciate that, and I'm glad that that you are doing the work that you're doing, because it is going to help. Some moms are out there, and it's going to help them to talk more to their girls that go through this. And do you have any, Georgia? Do you have any extra tips or anything that you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, just to build on what Deb said, I think that by speaking it into the space, you start to reduce the shame around it. And shame is a big part of that. And we, as women, carry a lot of shame. We carry that in our wombs. And it's a lot of my work that we do. Well, the work that we do is about reconnecting to that divine source of femininity. And yeah, eliminating or reducing shame where possible is by speaking it into the space.
Awesome.
Just being with it, being with whatever's happening, just being present, which is hard.
Okay. Well, we have an extra special guest here, and it's a kind of a guest of a guest. And we thought, and I think this guest is a male. Is he okay to come on screen?
Yes.
Do we want to let him in?
Yes, let him in.
All right. Okay. So
Well, now, I don't know. Do we let men in, George?
this is my husband, Tim.
Hello
and
there.
Tim.
Hi.
Hello.
It's Debbie and Georgie. And so I hear, Tim, that you have a question for these ladies.
Yes. What advice can you give to the men whose significant others may be going through menopause?
Georgie, if I may take this one, I would love to.
Yeah.
Having gone through perimenopause with a man who is now no longer in my life because of his reaction to it. So what I would love to say to men who are in a relationship with a woman going through these changes in her life, please be patient. Please be caring. Listen if they want you to listen. Leave them alone if you want them to. If they want you to leave them alone. Every woman will react in a different way to this. Every woman will want something different to help them through this. Just be whatever it is they need. If you truly love your woman, give them exactly what they need, but ask them what they need. Don't be afraid to ask them, and just show that genuine care.
Yeah, we always say be patient, but we don't consider sometimes the person on the other end of your patience really would appreciate your patience, right? So there's one answer. I don't know if Georgie has a different one or wants to expand on that. What do you think, Georgie?
I love that. I just think that's, being a space holder. It is hard because you have to have space for your own stuff that's going on, but maybe not take things personally. If there's inflammatory stuff going on, it's probably hard when you are activated as a man yourself, but just try to sort of separate that from the person, because it's not them.
Patience and understanding. So you got that, Tim? Patience and understanding.
Yes,
And
I got that. And thank
was.
goodness I still have some more of those.
Good. There's no excuse now, Tim.
Yeah, he was very patient, very understanding. We've been together for 22 years, and he did not leave me through the menopause.
Wow.
And gosh, Debbie, I'm, that story that you told, You just put your vulnerability right out there to all of us. But I really do believe that people need to hear that kind of thing from somebody, how much patience means, right? How much it means to that other person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's extremely important.
Tim, do you have another question for them?
Well, it's kind of a silly question, but I kind of feel a little awkward asking this. But is it possible that a man could go through maybe menopause or something to that extent, where I've kind of determined it to be maybe a midlife crisis is what men call it. But anyways, if you could have anything to add to that.
Well, firstly, there are no such things as silly questions.
Okay.
And secondly, yes, there is a menopause. And I actually, it's quite bizarre because I think it was just about a week ago, I always believed it was called male menopause, but it's actually called andropause.
Andropause.
Yes.
And yeah.
Andropause, yes.
Awesome.
So it is real. It is very real, but it's not like the man flu.
And you were, I think, if you could, do you know what, is it andropause you said?
Yes.
Okay. For some reason, I want to call it anthropause, but I think it's anthropology as I'm thinking of. Andropause. If you could you tell us what goes on? I'm really curious because now I have to be the patient one, maybe.
Yeah, you might have to be. Yeah. Do you know what? It's almost the same. It's almost the same, aside from the lack of the menstruation, because obviously men don't have that. The other symptoms are almost identical. You know, it can be the mood swings, it can be irritability. You might notice a change in your body muscle mass, your body shape. You might be developing some man boobs going on here. You might have extra fat distribution. You may have less energy. You may have difficulty sleeping. You may get the brain fog, you know. So really, most of the symptoms can apply to both men and women.
Yes, and I can see that could require patience for sure. Well, so you have anything to add to that, Georgie?
No, I think it's just the process of aging. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was certainly a delight to have you two here today, and Tim, you as well. Thank you for being patient with me through my menopause. And I really appreciate, again, Debbie, Georgie, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge. And we'll have the correct links on the website in the description for this video and in the show notes for the podcast. In the meantime, take care, and thanks again for being on Calming the Chaos.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Calming the Chaos. If the information in today's podcast was helpful, please consider subscribing and share it with your friends. You can find this podcast on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, and on YouTube. You can also go to my website at www.lokahicounseling.com for more resources for calming your mental and emotional chaos. This includes a CD I created that teaches you how to practice mindfulness in less than 10 minutes. So check it out. Thanks again for listening, and I look forward to sharing my next podcast episode with you. In the meantime, take care.